Gay liberation. Gay and lesbian rights, so much the center of the struggle for equality and of controversy in our modern media, had its beginnings the latest of all movements. Gay liberation began principally as a response to the growing police harassment in cities with large gay and lesbian populations, chiefly New York and San Francisco. In 1969, riots broke out in Greenwich Village, a neighborhood in New York City. Police had frequently raided gay bars and clubs for decades, as well as harassed and jailed homeless gay youths on the streets of Greenwich and San Francisco, but on the night of June 27, 1969, attendees at the bar The Stonewall decided not to take the abuse passively. Under pretenses of raiding the bar because it was serving alcohol to underage persons, which later had proven not to be true, patrons inside and outside fought back against the police raid. Some taunted the police verbally, others threw objects ranging from coins, which symbolized the attitude that New York cops were corrupt and could be bought, to bottles. As violence escalated against the bar's patrons and protesters, the riots against the police grew also more violent, culminating with a Molotov cocktail being thrown at officers, which nearly burned some of them to death. Once the rioting calmed down, gays in New York felt a new confidence in taking their complaints of decades-long harassment to the streets, and anti-gay rights activists amped up their attacks against homosexuality as well. In 1977, Harvey Milk was able to successfully organize the gay community within that city and collaborate with sympathetic straight voters to win enough votes to win election to San Francisco's Board of Supervisors. Milk became the first openly gay person elected to public office in the United States. While in office, he labored for urban improvement throughout the city of San Francisco, decreasing police harassment of the homeless in the city's gay population, and forged political alliances with feminist organizations, labor leaders, the Black Panthers in neighboring Oakland, and the city's other minority groups such as Latinos, Asians, and Filipinos, all of whom had felt the sharp sting of prejudice and police harassment throughout San Francisco's history. Milk also encouraged gays around the country to no longer hide their sexuality, to come out of the closet, as it were, and acknowledge their true selves and take pride in it. Milk was a forerunner of the gay liberation movement, which pushed for greater acceptance of and more political and civil rights for America's non-heterosexual populations. Tragically, in 1979, Milk and San Francisco Mayor George Moscone, who, for the record, was heterosexual, were both assassinated by former board member Dan White. White would claim in court that his depression, combined with the fact that he'd been eating nothing but junk food for days on end, most notably a whole lot of Twinkies, led to his bad judgment, which then led to him pulling the trigger against Milk and Moscone. The now infamous Twinkie defense, silly as it sounds, worked. White was ultimately found guilty only of manslaughter charges, not murder, and sentenced to only 7 years of prison, but ultimately served only 5. Shortly after his release from prison in January of 1984, however, White fell into a deep depression. In January the following year, he killed himself. Milk's legacy of gay pride and cooperative political work, however, lived on. It inspired future generations of gay and lesbian youth to stand up and stand out in their communities. As a result, in 2009, civil rights issues tend to focus principally upon gay and lesbian concerns, specifically and most modernly in the right of gays and rights to marry and enjoy all the legal privileges therein. Conclusion. Sadly, there are many groups not included in this lecture. Asian Americans, for instance, would organize effective media watchdog organizations and improve their treatment in the popular culture, as well as political groups who successfully lobbied for a federal apology and reparations to the Japanese internment camp victims from World War II. Cuban, Haitian, and Puerto Rican Americans still struggle for an identity in a country that tends to group all brown people together as Mexicans. Jewish Americans have struggled long and hard for recognition, respect, and equality. American youth made dramatic political gains in the arenas of free speech and voting in the 1960s and 70s, especially as the adoption of the 26th Amendment extended voting rights nationally to all citizens 18 years or older. There is simply not enough time nor bandwidth to effectively communicate the struggles and successes of all activists in this lecture or even in our class. Hopefully what you've learned is that the African American struggle for civil rights in the 50s and 60s opened doors for, and in some cases directly or even indirectly encouraged, other groups across our country to stand up for and fight for their equality. Hopefully, you could identify actions by these groups that would qualify as both national and trench-based movements to fight both de jure and de facto prejudices. Hopefully your curiosity has been piqued so that you want to learn more about those groups who intrigue you. Head to your library, your bookstore, your Netflix account, and learn how John Locke's ideas from over 300 years ago, which were set down in our government over 200 years ago, are still alive and well and being fought for in the struggle that is the modern civil rights movement.